Well, welcome to the Sisel opportunity. Who's pretty excited to hear from Tom Mower today? I notice a lot of faces are here. It's all about curiosity, right? Everybody raise your hand if it's just a curiosity play. Come on, be honest. Everybody's like, Joey's still living. Raise your hand. Come on. It's been an interesting journey over the last 8 months. And everything happens for a reason in life, right? And one thing I learned, God only puts on you what you can handle. So I appreciate each and every one of you coming out. Susan Bird, Talitha, and so many leaders, Tommy and Sharon Davis, Cheryl Ledford. Everybody give them a hand for making this happen. This is actually my second meeting, and my first meeting was last night in Atlanta, Georgia. And the gentleman that's going to share the Sisel vision with you all today, I met this gentleman several months ago, and I wasn't too sure. Timing for me was really not right. I wasn't looking for an opportunity. But as I just said about you all, most of you here, curiosity kills, right? And he started sharing some things with me that just really, being in this industry for 20 years, blew my mind. From an infrastructure standpoint to manufacturing to product lines, just a lot of things I thought I understood about this industry, I had no clue. And how many people in here think when you think you know everything, sometimes you should go take a cold shower and start over? Well, I got a reality check. I truly did. I've been in this industry 20 years, been very blessed, made a lot of money in this industry because of great people. I played the telecom industry, the juice industry, and the coffee industry. Who's really excited about the coffee industry? One person. Everybody give her a hand. Maybe y'all wake up. You know, one thing I learned 7 years ago about the coffee industry, it was the second largest traded commodity in the world. It made sense. And when I was evaluating a company, not saying any names, right? Everybody I knew needed to lose weight, right? Everybody I knew was broke, right? And everybody I knew drank coffee. I'll tell you what. I'm going to quit talking and I'm going to put him on a private jet and fly him back. Please, everybody clap your hands and wake up. I've never seen anything like it. So, when I realized the power of the coffee industry, I was sold out and we started building. And that led me to this gentleman several months ago. He was asking a few questions about coffee and the coffee industry, and here I am picking his brain about manufacturing, and when he shared companies that he manufactured for, that a lot of us have represented those companies, okay? When you realize he private labeled for those companies, and those companies stand up in front of the room, oh, we do our own manufacturing. Understand, 98% of every company in the MLM industry, and I'm going to say this very bold, they lie. Who agrees with me on that? Thank you. Tom Mower's a team player. When you really understand what goes on behind the scenes in this industry, and I've been in it for 20 years, as I said, I've been sick to my stomach about a lot of things over the last 7 or 8 months. And when I met this gentleman that's getting ready to come up, and I'll assure you, he will change your life. Whether you get involved in Sisel International or not, it's irrelevant to him. I'll assure you, he's not worried about who joins forces or who doesn't. Would y'all agree? One of the wealthiest people in this industry, not only in network marketing, but traditional business also. He owns one of the largest manufacturing facilities in the world, over 400,000+ square feet. Anybody ever heard of Walmart? Anybody ever heard of GNC stores? And I can go on for hours. You think if he can manufacture products for these companies, he can manufacture products for a network marketing company? Yes or yes?
Yes.
So when I did my due diligence from top to bottom, I went straight to the opportunity because everybody I talked to said, Joey, Tom Mower's products are unbelievable. If everything you looked at in his company, I'll assure you, he's got the best of the best. From skincare to weight loss, to the coffee industry, to anti-aging industry. Who's here intrigued about anti-aging? Raise your hand. When you witness what's taking place tonight, I'm smiling at some of you. I've missed a lot of you all, okay? Who missed me? Raise your hand. Come on, Doc. When you really understand what he has created for each and every one of us to share with people, it's going to blow your mind. Being in this industry for 20 years, being at the top of companies, working with owners of companies, working with liars of companies, to finally find a home after 20 years. It took 20 years to prepare myself to find Sisel International. So everybody stand up and help me welcome Tom Mower Sr., the owner of Sisel International. Well,
thank you, everybody. I don't know if my microphone's on. Doesn't sound like it is, but I'm on. That's the thing that matters. And it's if you can't hear me with the mic that's working, I raised 6 children, so I do know how to keep my voice at a very high level for a very long time, as you can imagine. And it does work. Well, great to be here and in Chattanooga. I've never been here before. I've been to somewhere around here, Nashville, I guess that's in Tennessee, isn't it? Kind of. We had a few conventions there, and it was fun to do the conventions and come out here. But for a chance to come in, of course, famous name, Chattanooga, you know, you think I could go over to some foreign country and I could say, I got my products out and I learned how to make them work and I put the Chattanooga ingredient in and, whoo, boy, that sounds exotic, doesn't it? Because they don't know. You remember, I remember watching, did you ever read the book, Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court? If you didn't, you were lucky. But it was a pretty good one. It was funny, but it was so deep with it. And then they made a movie out with Bing Crosby, and he was supposed to be the wizard. And he was standing up there in the movie, and he was saying, he was making a chant. They were going to kill him, and he remembered that there was an eclipse that was going to happen that time. So he was standing up there and he was saying, Walla Walla, Washington, Chattanooga, Tennessee. They thought it was some magical chant that he was making. But Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, you know, with that kind of thing. Well, it's kind of like that with ingredients in products, isn't it? Big names nobody's heard of, but they don't know what they are, and they sound mysterious. In reality, most of them do little or nothing. If you're looking at skincare, I got some advice for you. Save your money, save your face. They don't make you younger, they make you older, and they're the single biggest health hazard you'll have in your life. If you put on a wrinkle product and you think that it's working, that's your benefit. You think that it's working, because I can guarantee you it's not. Let me quote you, Procter & Gamble just bought out a couple years ago Noxel Cosmetics, and in a scientific magazine, which I'm sure none of you are dumb enough to read like I do, there was an article in it, and it talked about culture shock. And they said, Procter & Gamble is in for a big culture shock. Now, I've got it memorized. I've said it enough times. And here's what it said. The author was named Cullen. He was a PhD. He said, and this is how he started. He says, Dawn takes the grease away from dishes, and Tide makes clothes cleaner. And these are things you can see. But the product benefits in cosmetics are psychic rather than rational. Did you catch that? This is the magazine for professional chemists and companies. So he said, but the product benefit, see, they put out Noxel Cosmetics, 1.7 billion or something like that dollars. And they said, boy, they're in for a big culture shock, because they're used to cleaning dishes and cleaning clothes, and they're going to find out the cosmetic products are psychological, not real. So the product benefits in the cosmetics are what you think they are. So he said, and then he went on, and catch this one. He said, in terms of ingredients, there's little real difference between one brand and another. Does that mean the cheapo at Walmart and the most expensive one at Dillard is the same or close to it? Exactly right. Exactly right. In fact, as I just analyzed the most expensive skincare product I have ever seen in my life, I beg your pardon, second most expensive. Here is the one that is the most expensive in the world to manufacture, which we'll show you about later. But I analyzed it, and you know what? It sells for almost $250 for a month's supply. And it's by one of the big name products, one of the big ones. You all know the name. And guess how much it costs? 87 cents to make. 87 cents. That is the most expensive formula I've ever seen, other than this one I just showed you, which you can bet your bippy it costs a lot more than 87 cents. As I made it to work. And so what Cullen said, he said, the product benefits to the user is how it makes her feel about herself. End of quote. You imagine that? Product benefits are psychic, not rational, and the product benefits to the user is how it makes her feel about herself. Well, how much warm fuzzies do you get out of a $150 bottle of wrinkle product? You know, when you look in the, and you see these advertisements they do? I looked at it, I remember I was flying along in an airplane once. There's this beautiful young woman sitting next to me, and she was reading this magazine. And here it was, you know, it was like Cosmopolitan one. I mean, you know how, have you seen those? Where you turn the pages? Guys, you know, you have a magazine that you read like that where you just turn the pages and tell people you're reading the articles. But she was reading this magazine, and I looked at her. There was about one line on it. And she just kept looking at it and looking at it. And I thought either she's the world's slowest reader or she's from Idaho, one of the two. I couldn't decide which one it was. But here it talked about, it said, you know, that you have beautiful, flawless, wrinkle-free skin with this product. She was standing out there on a ledge. You've seen those pictures, you know, slightly out of focus. Standing on this ledge, the sea was coming in, the wind was blowing. She was wearing something no decent girl would wear outside, and standing there in the wind, you know, with it going. And one little line on it said that. And I looked at her and I thought, I'd like to see her face in about 50 years. Because she was 19 years old. No wonder she wasn't worried about wrinkles. But let's bring Grandma out there. And she comes out in her nightie, you know. Then got a face like a Rand McNally road map. You know, she's used products all her life, spent tens of thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of hours. And she's an old woman with lots of wrinkles and sags. Why? Because products don't work. And they're so full of toxin. You two are sitting together, okay? She has about, nothing personal, about 4 times more toxins in her body than you do. Why? Because she takes care of herself. And you have a tough time bathing, shaving, brushing your teeth. You see? Ray might put on deodorant if he thinks it needs it. He might shave if he thinks he wants to, you know. He might bathe if it's the right week in the month. Whatever it is. But because men don't take care of themselves, their heart attack rates are lower and their cancer rates are lower than women by a long ways, and women's are increasing higher because they use so many more personal care products. In the umbilical cord of a baby, there's about 230 toxins. Can you imagine it? In the umbilical cord blood. Where are they getting that? Well, they're getting about 70% of those from personal care products because of what you put on your body goes into your body. And about that, see? You get that much. About 60-70% of everything that goes on your skin goes into your body. So what are you putting on your skin? You're putting names of products like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, aren't you? So long you don't know what they are. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they nothing? I know. So the theme of tonight is I'm going to be like the Greyhound bus driver. Just leave the driving to us. I'm going to tell you what these things are, and you'll have a smooth ride, and you'll understand. Because there's a big difference between working and not working. There's a difference between reality and illusion, and it all lies within the product that you're using. When I can say to you that the cap on the bottle on most cosmetics costs more than what's in it, does that shock you? If it does, good, because it should. because that's the case. Do you know that the box often costs more than the contents of the bottle? The label costs more than the contents of the bottle. The cheapest thing you buy is the formulation that you're putting on your skin. You see? They use ingredients that have big names, and sometimes they have some technical science. Do you know there's a company that uses a product that you put on in the night? And so it's a night cream. It happens to be some drops, and you all know the name. It's named after a woman. I won't say which one because there are several of them that are named after women. See? So anyway, it's named after a woman, and you use this product at night, and it takes care of the damage that happens during the day. Well, it has an ingredient called ergothioneine. Not exactly a household name. It's a fungus. Has nothing to do with Ray. It's a fungus on its own. With this thing, it is a kind of fungus that hits damage on the skin and sends a signal to the cell to come or the skin to come and repair it. And it repairs it on a nightly basis. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And it works. It does work. Ergothioneine will repair the daily damage that happens to your skin. It takes 20,000 parts per million to make it work. 20,000. It works at 50,000 for maximum effect. I make that product, and it's called Rapid Repair. I use ergothioneine in it. And I called the company up, and I said to them that had discovered it, and I said, I saw what you had on ergothioneine. I wanted to talk to you about it, and we discussed it. And I said, I'd like to use it for my direct sales company. And they said, okay, well, we think we could work out. And then they called me back, and they said, oh, we can't. We wrote a contract with this big cosmetic company. And I said, oh, but here's thinking, you know, remember one thing about building a business, you always got to be thinking. Don't be straightforward, be thinking laterally. So the minute he said that, I said, oh, I know them, of course. Everybody knows them. I said, did you write a contract for mass marketing, or did it include direct sales? He said, I don't know. Say, here it is, business professional. He didn't know, didn't think about it, because they're not thinking about the field that we're in. So he said, I'll get back with you. So he called me back next day and said, it's just for mass marketing. I said, great, now this is where you have to move on it. I said, great, I'll take it for direct sales. I didn't even ask him. I just said, I'll take it for direct sales. He said, oh, okay. So I took it for direct sales. About a year and a half, 2 years later, he comes back to me and he says, you know, you're selling more than blankety blank company. I said, that's impossible. They do about $15 billion a year in sales. It's their #1 selling product. How could I buy more of it than they do? He says, it's real easy, Tom. And this guy was the president of the American Association of Cosmetic Chemists. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. Representative says, it's really easy. It takes 50,000 parts per million to work. And you use 4 times as much product volume in your product as they did. They had less than an ounce, and I had a little over 2 ounces in mine, see? So I had 4 times more product. So you'd think I'd use more, wouldn't you? But he said, but the real difference is you use 50,000 parts per million, and they use 4. Got that, Ray? 1, 2, 3, 4. See?
When do you use the phone?
See? Some people have to explain 4. People from West Virginia, they get to 3, and they're stymied. Ray made it to 4. But can you imagine that? It takes 20,000 to work, 50,000 gives you the effect, and they use 4 parts per million. 4! We use 50,000, and I use 4 times the volume of the product they do. So what does that tell you? If you go into Dillard's or Nordstrom's or one of those places and buy that product, and you'll pay about $120 or $30 for it. Some of you already know what the name of it is that you use at night to repair your skin. So anyway, if you go into it, you know how many bottles of that you have to use to be equal to the amount of product in ours? 50,000 bottles. Wow. Because we have 4 times the content and 50,000 parts per million. You see, they have 4 parts per million and 1/4 of the content. 50,000 bottles of theirs to equal 1 bottle of ours for content. Now, which name do you know? Do you know that one or ours? You don't know ours, do you? But we're putting our money in our product. We're back to doing it the good old-fashioned way. We're making it like it should be, like it could be. The things that built network marketing. Any of you remember Amway? The old days? LOC? So safe you could drink it and yet you could clean with it. Tide couldn't get the clothes as clean as SA8, and it couldn't, because the 8 stood for 8% phosphate and Tide had 6% phosphate. You see? That's the way that MLM should be, a network marketing company. You need to sit down and talk to someone, and you need to have a product that's not as good as the best. You need to have one that's unique and revolutionary and vastly superior in every way, don't you think? I would like to say, now I have the second best product in the industry. What would the customer think, you know? And yet these companies talk about it, and we make for, Joey is right, we make for many different MLM companies, ones that you've been in, we've made their products, some of them we've made all of them, and we've got some of the big ones, and some of them that I've even chastised a little bit. I can't chastise them anymore because they're my customers. We make their products, so I can't name them by name. Don't necessarily want to anyway. But do you know big companies like Herbalife, which I don't make a product for, they've never made a product in their entire life. Never, ever made a product. Now, wouldn't you think they made their products? They're like, what, second or so biggest in the world, and they never made a single product? That's quite amazing, isn't it? And you ask some of them, I know one of the big juice companies, so we've made all their products, started with them from the very beginning and do it, and people ask them where their factory is. Oh, it's at a secret location. Well, I know where that secret location is. My office is right there. And that's what they say. So if I had to look at all these different ingredients that are around, I know which ones work, I know which ones don't, but I also know which ones are bad for you. And I say the best thing about our products is what's not in it. You see? Because cosmetics have so many toxins in them. But it's not just toxins. They create cancer. Yes, they do with cancer, the big C word. We know that creates cancer, but guess what else they are? They're endocrine disruptors. And you know what an endocrine disruptor is? I'd have Ray stand up a minute and you can see an example of it, but we'll talk about it instead. With an endocrine disruptor, it affects the sexual development of the person. And in doing so, it suppresses the male, sorry Ray, and it exacerbates the female. Now, I've liked exacerbated females at times in my life, but normally when it comes to personality and that, it can do so much harm. And some of these are the ingredient that you're putting, that you probably use today, if you're not using our product, that you shampooed with, or if you bathed with, or if you wash your dishes in, is, guess what? It has the ingredient in it that has 1,4-dioxane, and that's what's in Agent Orange. Have you heard of Agent Orange? Yeah. And you can be showering in the ingredient that is in Agent Orange, 1,4-dioxane. And guess what? It loves you, you know, because it's fat-loving. And it will accumulate in fatty tissues and stay there. And it's 400 times more toxic and stimulatory than estrogen. 400 times. And your liver won't metabolize it like it does estrogen. So it accumulates and accumulates and accumulates, and it's such an oxidizer, it's just eating away and eating away and eating away, and someday, wham, there you go, and there's breast cancer or endometrial cancer like that, because it sticks in the fat cells, and you got it. Isn't that horrible? Does it shock you? You don't know it, but no one says it. Why? Because they've all got it in their products, almost all of them. And so why did they use it? Well, it's really simple. They were grandfathered in before anybody knew anything. After all, you look at cigarettes, right? How many of you here don't smoke? Yeah, you see? And you can't get rid of cigarettes. How many of you here don't bathe? Just one. You see? And so there's a huge market for these products out in the industry. And they're not going to change them. Why are they going to change them? Because you ladies, you know how you pick up a product, right? You pick up a product, you look at it, you smell it, you know, you like the color, you know, that time. Oh, I'll take it, I'll try it. You see, but you don't know those long names, you don't know what they are, you don't know what they do and don't do or shouldn't do, but we do. So now that we're talking about doo-doo, we'll tell you what to do with this. We don't want you buying a bottle of that crap. We want you to buy a bottle of stuff that really works. And our stuff really works, scientifically speaking. I mean, if they can do things in science that is amazing, they can transplant organs now. Did you know that? You knew that. They transplant a heart, a liver. They transplanted a face on a woman. Didn't remember that when they did that? And where did they get that skin? They got it off a dead body. Did you know that? That was a cadaver skin. And why did they take dead skin off a dead body? Because the skin was not dead. The skin lives on its own. It takes in oxygen from the air, not from your lungs. And so after you die, your body dies, your skin grows. And a man, if he's dead, they have to shave him if he didn't have a beard before a funeral, because the hair grows for days after he's dead because it's not dead. So we're talking about an organ, the largest organ on your body, and it's so vulnerable to the outside influence. It takes in the air, it respires, it gives off toxins and all of that. And yes, it wrinkles, doesn't it? And it wrinkles and it wrinkles and it wrinkles. But what causes all that? Why is it that a child, a young baby, has skin like a young baby? Because it's a young baby and it hasn't been exposed to the environment. And I saw a picture in National Geographic quite a number of years ago, I've got to find it again, of a Tibetan monk. And he was brought into the monastery as a baby, and he had never been in the sun in his life. And he had skin like a baby. And it said that right on National Geographic in the magazine. And I thought, well, you know, that's it. See, he lived in an environment where he was isolated. He wasn't in the sun. He wasn't putting on lotions. He didn't have these contaminants. It was pure air, and his skin did not age. Well, we can't all live in a Tibetan monk monastery so we can have that skin like that, can we? Some of us maybe should live in a cage, but others, we want to live into the real world. And if we do want to live in the world, what can we do about the environmental attack that happens to our bodies? A lot, if we know what it is. If you know what you're fighting, you can fight it, right? And that's the idea. So we know how to fight these things. We know what they are, and we know how to go after them. We know how to prevent them. We know how to correct them. But it costs money to do that, and that is what part of our operation is about, is making the best products the world has never seen. Using the chemistry that is there, but companies can't afford, won't buy those ingredients, or if they do, they won't use them in the amounts to give you the results they want. If it takes 50,000, they'll use 4. You see? Some of them, we talked about coffee here with Joey on this thing. Do you realize that the #1 Ganoderma, well, I won't say #1, one of the top selling Ganoderma coffee companies, they just had an analysis done in a court case on their coffee, and they had what was called an undetectable amount of Ganoderma. Scientifically speaking, that means less than 1 part per million. Less than 1 part per million. And it's a Ganoderma health coffee. Is it? Well, it's got Ganoderma in it. But do you realize I could build a vat as big as this building, and one big tank, fill it full of water and all kinds of chemicals and everything, and it could be a hair shampoo or something like that I have. And I could take an eyedropper to this giant vat, and I could have maybe 100 ingredients in this eyedropper, and I could stand over the top of this building and put 1 drop in it, and I could list it on every label of every bottle that I ever produced. You see? So when you when you see a list of ingredients as long as your arm, as big as Ray's stomach, when you see that on there, you realize that they don't mean anything. Sometimes they do, but in other cases they don't mean anything. They're there to trick you, to fool you, to give the illusion that all of these things you're putting on your hair are there in substance and they do something. Sure, they might say Ivy Meadow Sweet. Well, that sounds pretty good. What does Ivy Meadow Sweet do, you know? What does B6 do? That's what we're talking about. Now, I'm just prefacing this so I can talk about what can we do. The best thing about our products is what's not in it. We have a list called Sisel Safe. Take it with you to the store when you go shopping, and guess what? You'll bring back no personal care products, because these are all backed by scientific studies. And why should you contaminate your body? Do you want to do that? Do you want to use industrial antifreeze on your eyelashes? How about brake fluid? You're doing it. That's what's in mascara. Brake fluid and industrial antifreeze with that kind of thing. Isn't that shocking? Yeah. And in your shampoos, do you want your children to develop normally? It's pretty hard to get them to do that anyway, isn't it? But with the type of chemicals that we have in products today, think about this. Do you know there's been more genetic change in women from the grandmother to the daughter to the granddaughter today than there has been? And we're having genetic change, right, Ray?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now.
So anyway, there's been more genetic change in those 3 generations to the little girl today, to her mother, to her grandmother, than there has been in 2,000 years in women. Why? Because of what you're using. Isn't that sad? Because you have false hope and belief. And you know, I was an industrial chemist. I didn't know it. But years ago, I found a discovery. I was selling products for industry. I sold hotels products they used here for laundry, for housekeeping, for cooling systems and boilers and dishwashing and all those types of things, and swimming pools. And I sold big manufacturing companies and things like that. And I was always looking to make the products the best. And so I took before the internet, I took a lot of magazines. I read through them. And one day I came across an article that was some research that had been done at the University of Helsinki. And they were testing products on men's scalp that had skin cancer. Now, do you remember when we used to think a tan was healthy? Remember that? Yeah. And of course it does produce vitamin D, but the cancer is so much. And when men lose their hair and they're outside, the sun is directly on them, and they have a higher incidence of skin cancer because of that. So they were rubbing these ointments on men's scalps, and they started growing hair. Get that? Started growing hair. And they, whoa, boy, it's medication. It's powerful. It's stimulating hair growth. So they did a 3.5-year study to find out what was causing it. And they found it had nothing to do with the medication. It had to do with what's called an emulsifier. In the product, they had a water-based ingredients and water, and oil-based ingredients and oils. And they have to mix them together. You know, kind of like you do with the vinegar and oil salad dressing. You have to shake it up because it doesn't mix, see? So they have an emulsifier, and they can dissolve the oil phase in it, and then it'll dissolve in water. Or they could, in another kind, they could dissolve the water phase in it, then it'll dissolve in oil, depending on what you're doing. And that's what they did. They dissolved the oil phase in it, and then it dissolved in the water. And so when they rubbed it on men's scalps, and this is when they thought the hair follicle was dead. You know, if you lost your hair, you were a dead head. You had lost your hair with it. And so they started rubbing it in, hair started growing. And so they did the study, and they found out what it was doing is it was emulsifying a hormone in the hair follicle that causes male pattern baldness. And that was the first breakthrough in it. So I saw that. I thought, wow, I wasn't in network marketing. I've never been a network marketer. Now I built the 5th biggest company in the world from nothing, but I did it on the kind of principles that you want to live by. You know, paying for things the way you have to do it. Getting debt free, paying for it when I could afford it, and that type of thing. Building it the best that it could be. That was my philosophy, and well ran. So I took a company from nothing, from one time it being 12,000. Out of 12,000 MLMs, I was number 12,000, okay? And at the end, I was number 5. Then I sold it. That was hard to do. It was a $1 billion company, and that was quite a number of years ago. A $1 billion company just right around 2000 or so. Imagine a $1 billion company from nothing. It started with $100 and it was worth $1 billion and I had no debt. How's that? Would you like to do that? It was terrific to be on top, but getting there was quite a climb. I can tell you that. It took me about 8 or 10 years to get it to where it really started to go, but it was worth the effort. Then I got a divorce. And I became a half a billionaire overnight. You can talk about billionaires, but you've met a half a billionaire. It cost me $500 million, but it was darn well worth it. It was one of the better investments I've made in life. So anyway, that's another story. But anyway, with that concept, I was selling thousands, tens of thousands of accounts, thousands and thousands of big supermarkets. And I thought, wow, here is an answer to a product that can grow hair on bald heads, which they thought was impossible. They thought it had died, and I've got the answer. So I got the studies from the University of Helsinki. I made it up. I had men rubbing it on their scalps, and they started growing hair. And it was really something to see with it. And I thought, whoa, this is going to create an epidemic. You know, with it's just going to grow. Well, the hair was growing, but I took it to the supermarkets, and they said, oh, you can't say that. Say what? It grows hair. Well, it's growing hair. No, I can't say that. FDA won't let you say it. Why? It works. Well, because it's a drug and you have to go through the process. I said, it's approved for cosmetics. It's approved for food stuff. Are you telling me I can't say that ranch style grows hair because it's used in salad dressing, or blue cheese will get your hair back? You know? How would you like to go into the restaurant? Give me some blue cheese, some for my salad and some for my head. It's got the same emulsifier in it. It does. And it emulsifies it. Yeah, you could take whatever variety you want, and you probably get your hair back, guys, if you want to. Then if you got too much, the dog could lick it off when you're done and you'd be okay. But that's another story. But with that, here a simple product that they use in salad dressing that's approved to eat, that's approved in cosmetics, could grow hair, and I was a criminal if I said it grew hair. Can you believe that? And proven at the University of Helsinki. I said, it's proven. They said, oh, that's not, you have to do it according to our protocol. So I was young and dumb and naive, and I said, okay, what do you do? Well, you have to submit an application. Okay? Application's over 100,000 pages. Can you imagine that? Geez, you have trouble filling out one for your driver's license, don't you? It's like 100,000 pages. And then you have to do a study. A study? No. One study is not enough. 50 is not enough. 100 is not enough. Hundreds and hundreds of studies costing millions and millions of dollars each in some cases to get a drug approval. So the drug that is out today was discovered probably 20, 25 years ago, and it is old hat, but it's the latest thing that's out. Science has gone so far beyond it, but it takes 15, 20 years to get a new drug approval. Costs about $2 billion. And you can take a safe natural ingredient and you can use it as long as you don't say what it does. How is that? But if you do, it becomes a drug, and that's a $2 billion question and a 100,000-page application and 20 years of study. Where do you get the money to do that? And if it's natural, and that's leading up to how we do things, if it's natural, then you can't patent it. How'd you like to put $2 billion into something and you couldn't patent it? And somebody else, after you've invested all that time, they could bring it out and sell it for a fourth of the price that you're selling it for and say, here's the same thing. So you see, that's the way medicine is. Anybody believe in big pharma? I don't. I don't for a second. And so now with all of this, most of the drugs you see coming out treat the symptoms. They're not into cure. Why? You spend $2 billion, you don't want to cure it. I want to take care of you. I want you to be my patient. I want to sell you stuff every single month, so we'll treat your symptom, not cure you. You see? Because if I cure you, it costs me money. But if you go back to the Chinese philosophy, the Chinese have a saying that the human body can live to a very long length of time if you do but two things and be healthy. And that is remove the toxins and the waste and provide the type of nutrients so it can function as it should. So traditionally in China, you paid your doctor to keep you healthy. And when you become sick, you stop paying your doctor. Ask your doctor if he'll operate that way with you. See? Pay him to keep you healthy. And when you become sick, he has to foot the costs until you get better. But see, they don't know how to do that because they're not trained to do that. And big pharma and big medicine is business. You only got about 3% of the doctors are really in it because they care about people. They're in it for business. There's nothing wrong with that, so to speak, but we have this idea of what they are and what they know. And you know what they know? They know little about anything except the field that they're in. So if you think the doctor is an expert in it, I had a top dermatologist down to my plant this past week, and I was showing him what I was doing, and I was showing him cross sections and studies, and he was astonished. And it was a dermatologist, and it was in his field, because I was showing him how to take old skin and make it young skin. I was showing him how to take a wrinkle and destroy it and create new skin with it. New skin, that's a bad name. Younger skin, let's go that way with it. But Anyway, to do that. And he couldn't believe it. Where did this science come from? I said, it's out there. The problem is nobody can afford to use it because it's so expensive. And so this is where my company come in. I was a manufacturer. I make products. And so the products that I sell to one of a competitor in MLM, we mark up about 400%. That's about what it takes with everything. So if I can take that 400% and I manufacture the products that you buy, I can put that into products. See, it's the same difference. Only you have a product that, in one case, that doesn't work or doesn't work well or minimal results, and it can be maximized. And I can put other things with it where there's a number of ingredients all working towards the same common cause. And when you're done, wow, it's hot. It works. The total is greater than the sum of the parts with that thing. And so that's the kind of chemistry that I'm looking for. That's why I'm in this business. So I built this big business, sold it. Before I did, I started building this company. And the company that come in and bought it, they were the ones that bought Herbalife when Mark Hughes died. And they came in to buy the company and they said, well, we'll need a non-compete. And I said, well, you're darn well not going to get it because I'm going to be your competitor. And they said, well, how can we buy a company if we don't buy a non-compete from you? I said, don't buy it. Because my company's for sale, I'm not. Because with what I have for knowledge and ability and resources, and I like people. Do you like people? You got to. You're all here. You like people. We're in the people business. I like people. I believe in God too. And I believe those things are natural. And I want to help people. And I think if I retired right now, they said, well, you can take the money and retire and do whatever you want to do. And I said, I am doing that. What do you think I do? Play golf? Go on cruise ships with old women whose hair's white and they spray it blue, and that's retirement? My God, that's not retirement for me, you know. I want more than that out of life. So anyway, I wouldn't give a non-compete. And they knocked $300 million off the sales price. There's 40 other companies, so it kept it up. They still wanted to buy it, and they did buy it. I said, you guys don't care anyway. You don't care about these distributors. You want to take it out, take it public, make your money, and move on to the next deal. Don't you get sick of the next deal? People in this business, what's the deal? This isn't a deal. This is a lifetime opportunity like no other that you have ever seen, like Joey has never seen before, because we're doing it right. I built the biggest plant in the world in network marketing, the biggest. I also built the second biggest. Amway is the third biggest. How'd you like that? I built two of them bigger than Amway for my previous company that I sold and the one that I built here, and they're both bigger than their biggest plant, which they're building now, 317,000 square feet. My previous one was 340, this one's 440 with it. Why did I build something so big? Because I can see what I couldn't before. When I started out in this thing, I was pretty excited about doing this business, and I hired the chemist that had worked for Sunrider, and Sunrider moved to California. He didn't want to move, and I was living in Utah, so I hired him. He was a Chinese guy, and he came in, he said, boy, when Sunrider did $1 million a month, we partied all night. Well, you know, it became a $1 billion company. You know that, probably, if you do. And I, wow, that'd be so great. I'd love it. If we do that, we ought to party all night. I'm not like Ray, I don't party all night, but nonetheless, I thought it'd be a good idea to do that for the company. And so I walked into my account one day and I said, let me know when you hit $1 million a month because we want to have a party all night. And he said, well, you should have partied 6 months ago because we did it then. Oh, missed out on the party. But pretty soon I was doing $1 million in an hour or two. Yeah, with the company. In an hour or two. That's the kind of thing that can be created, and I created a $1 billion company. Now in today's terms, it'd be over 2, maybe getting 2.5 when it hit $1 billion. But you know what? That's only the beginning. It's only just begun, like the song. It's only just begun, and what is in the past is what we've done, but what's in the future can be greater than everything we've done before because we have that experience if we have a track to run on. The greatest racehorse in the world was Secretariat, you know? And you can ride, if you rode Secretariat and you were in the Kentucky Derby, man, and if you could saddle up on that and be the jockey, Somebody like Ray would finish last, but you got to get somebody light. But nonetheless, if you're light enough to ride and you know how to ride, you can mount on that horse and you can run for the roses, can't you? But I will tell you what, saddle up a jackass and you're not going to win the Kentucky Derby, right? You can be on the track and they can show you all the things and it looks so great, but donkeys come in last, right? Because they're not thoroughbreds. We've got the Secretariat of MLM. We've got a compensation plan like no other company in the world. I'm paying out 2, 3, and 4 times the commission to other companies. We just took this Gagogana, that's what I call these coffee companies, because they use the most bitter tasting coffee. It's not even Arabic coffee. They have some Arabic, cheap Arabic, and they use the Robusta, the cheapest of all, not even Arabic. It's the most bitter. It has the highest level of caffeine, and they put it in there because it's cheap. And you drink it and you think, you know, a frown is a smile turned up, or a smile is a frown turned upside down. Well, you have to take a frown turned upside down because you think you're going to make money in it because it tastes so terrible. It's rotten tasting stuff. It's the worst that's out there, you see. And so as I looked at this thing in coffee, and I'm a Mormon boy. You know anything about Mormons? Well, we don't drink coffee. We don't. Why? Because it's bad for you. We don't drink alcohol. Why? Because it's bad for you. We don't smoke because it's bad for you. That's our health code. You know, and so we don't do it. I've never tasted coffee. So I went to make coffee. I thought, well, you know what? If I'm going to make coffee, I'm going to make the world's best coffee. And never having tasted it. It smelled good. My grandpa used to drink it. And I always thought it smelled great. It does, doesn't it? But I'd like to taste coffee, but I'm just not going to compromise my situation now with it because I make the only health coffee in the world. Why do I make the only health coffee in the world? Because I don't roast it. You see? Now, if you take a great big turkey and you put it in the oven, what happens? I mean, you cook it to a certain point, okay? But if you cook it too much, it gets all dried and wrinkled out, doesn't it, with that? And oh, that turkey's too dry because it's been over-roasted. All coffee is over-roasted, but it isn't that coffee gets dry. They want it to get dry. That's why they roast it. Now, from not ever having tasted coffee, here I'm making the world's best coffee. How do I know I make it the world's best coffee? The World Coffee Association tells me I do. They have a coffee taster's cup, and the Poquet Geisha coffee bean from Panama is #1 in the world, and it has been now for 14 consecutive years as the best tasting coffee bean in the world. They sell it at Starbucks in Japan, and I just had a bunch of Japanese distributors over here last week that came in and stayed with me at my ranch. And we have a thing called Mower Mountain Retreat, and they come in, and it's a lot of fun. You come there and you can act like a horse is behind, and you know, it's kind of like what stays in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, what stays at Bear Mountain stays there, and we have a great time. So they came in and they were saying, oh yeah, this sells in Japan. Starbucks is $18 a cup. Yeah, that's the coffee that you're drinking here. Because it's pure Panama Poquet Geisha. You can actually buy it, get on the internet, and you can buy it from Starbucks, $130 a bag. $130 a bag. There's one place I saw it was $99.95, $100 a bag. Ours is $26. You see? And it's micro ground. What is micro ground? Well, you have a ball that has so much surface area. But if you took that ball and you made little BBs out of every bit of it, how much surface area would you have? Massive amounts, you see? So we micro grind it so that we can have all the full flavor and richness with it. And then we don't roast it, we cook it. You see? But why do they roast it? They roast it so it gets dry so they can grind it because it's full of oil. And oil lubricates, so you can't grind it. You'd have coffee gombu, you know, if you did that kind of thing, because it wouldn't grind. So, but when you roast it like that, guess what? You create cancer-causing acrylamides. And now, according to Proposition 65 in California, every coffee shop you go into, in the grocery stores, there's a sign, warning, coffee causes cancer. Why do they have that up? Because coffee causes cancer. You see, it does. Have you burnt bacon? You know it causes cancer. Have you burnt toast? It causes cancer. Those things happen. The same thing happens when you roast coffee to that dark roast the way they do so they can grind it. Well, I don't want, you know, it's really hard to keep distributors when they keep dying off from cancer if you're giving them coffee that causes it, don't you think? So based on that analysis, I decided I would cook it rather than roast it. So instead of roasting it for a long period of time at 480 degrees, I cook it for a shorter time with an infrared heat that's more uniform at 200 degrees less, 280. And when mine done, it is cooked to perfection. And I have bought the most sophisticated coffee machine in the world so we can adjust the flavors. And we have the World Coffee Specialists Association testing it and tasting it, and they're telling us right where the flavors are. Do you know where these coffee companies are that are selling these MLM coffees on the scale from 1 to 100? They're rating in the low 60s, about 60. Do you know where coffees like Folgers and Maxwell and Nescafe are? They're in the 70s. Do you know Starbucks is rated the best tasting of the 20 biggest coffee companies, and I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe their rating is 81 on it. Okay, so why is theirs 81? Because they use a certain amount of Panama Bouquet Geisha coffee, and they micro grind it, and they have a secret process for micro grinding it. And, you know, patented anyway, and they keep a secret. But I know what that secret is, you see? Because how do you grind oily coffee? Well, it's really quite simple. You freeze it. You take it down cryogenically to about 150 degrees below zero, and it is colder than my mother-in-law's kiss. That son of a gun is so brittle that you can grind it, and you grind it up. And then once it's ground up, then it can heat up. And there it is. Then we add other ingredients in it to make it flow, and you have destroyed none of the properties. You haven't created any cancer-causing carcinogens, no tannins, none of those things that's bad for you. Now where coffee is bad for your heart, it's good for your heart. Now where coffee damages the liver, this repairs the liver. Now where coffee is bad for the brain, it builds clusters of brain cells, according to the science that's out there. Now I can't say it about our coffee because ours hasn't been tested. And according to the FDA regulations, a 100,000-page document to apply for it, 20 years of testing, $2 billion. I cannot say that, but I can say it about the ingredients. And I will tell you this, our ingredients are there. And the Alzheimer's Association says if you don't over roast coffee, if you don't freeze dry it, if you don't decaffeinate it, there is a mysterious ingredient in it, and it may be the answer to Alzheimer's because it builds clusters of brain cells. See? So do you want clusters of brain cells? Yeah. Would you like to have a cluster? Yes. That's the kind of thing. And so if Alzheimer's is eating holes in your brain, if it looks like Swiss cheese is what it does, how about filling them in? Can you imagine coffee fills in the holes in your brain from Alzheimer's? Can you imagine coffee rebuilds the heart, the lungs, the organs, antioxidant? Coffee makes you live longer. And then you add health ingredients to it, but you don't add undetectable parts. You put amounts in it that are therapeutically powerful. And is Ganoderma good? Good might be the right word for it. There's negatives and there's positives in Ganoderma. It's a fungus, you see? And so some funguses will kill you. You know that, poison mushroom, see? And so it's the same way. And some have great power, psychedelic mushrooms, right? Ray, they're pretty good, aren't they? So with psychedelic mushrooms or poisonous mushrooms or mushrooms on your steak, somewhere in between in the fungus world, there's properties. Mushrooms will repair the damage that causes to your skin. So there's all kinds of properties. But what's number one in the world? You hear these companies saying, Ganoderma, it's the king of herbs. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? But when you think about it, it's really quite a stupid statement because a fungus isn't an herb. Did you know that? Come in. We're just speaking about fungus. You made it in time. So, anyway, here they say, Ganoderma is the king of herbs. It's not an herb. It's like saying a chicken is the king of strawberries. It has absolutely no relevance at all to herbs. It's not an herb. So out of the fungus world, what is the best one for building health? It's not even a close second. It's chaga. Chaga, which comes from birch trees. That big, have you ever seen those white bark trees with the big cluster of black on it? That's fungus. That is chaga. And the best comes from Russia. Because the further north, the less light for the winter, the greater the cold, and the summers where the light is there all the time causes such extremes that chaga has developed in powerful properties. And the researchers who know about fungus from Japan, from China, from Korea, from Russia, say that chaga is over 100 times more powerful than Ganoderma. So which one do you want? Chaga? Should we throw in some Ganoderma too? Sure, let's throw it in. It's good. But chaga is great. Great for all those things, for the health. Do you know what superoxide dismutase is, some of you? Probably a few heads nod. It's the anti-aging enzyme we have in our body. It counteracts the oxygen. Have you ever seen children that are 5, 6, 7 years old and they've aged 10 years for every year they've lived, and they're 50, 60, 70 years old? See? 10 years ahead because they have no superoxide dismutase, and every breath they take ages them so incredibly fast, and they're dead by 10, you see, with that thing. But chaga puts as much superoxide dismutase in your system as if you took 2 capsules of it, which is really quite expensive. Can you imagine that? And as you get older, your SOD, you haven't noticed it, but it's going down. Your SOD goes down. And with it, you age faster because oxygen does more damage to you, just like it rusts, oxidizing, see? So chaga just fills your body. A cup of coffee with chaga fills your body with superoxide dismutase. Isn't that something? Now you learned a little something with it, but it builds the brain, builds the heart, builds the liver, builds the organs, gives you energy. Coffee's good for you, done right. Done wrong, it's bad for you. So I've made the world's best tasting coffee. In order to do that, I had to build a coffee plant because there's about 8 middlemen in it, and this is the world's most expensive coffee bean. So I had to go directly to Panama, and I had to buy from the pickers. Had to get a little group of pickers that were picking, that grows on the volcanoes high in Panama. The bean is the best tasting, and the soil is sweet soil. Most coffee is grown in sour soil, lime soils, you know, on the coast and places like that. This grows on a volcanic soil that is unique because instead of being bitter, it's sweet. It's acidic soils. And so here's the best bean in acidic, and when it's very high in the mountains, the higher up, the more solar radiation it gets. And just like, if you go up high in the mountain, you can get a sunburn real easy because there's less atmosphere to protect you. And so over the centuries, or million, I don't know how long coffee's been around, but anyway, with that, because of that intensity at that altitude, those beans have responded and they produced more antioxidants, more flavonoids, more flavor, you see? And that's what we've got in ours. Grown at the highest altitudes, grown in the sweetest soil, and the #1 rated coffee bean in the world, and because it's just unique to that area, it's highly sought after. And then there's about 6 or 8 middlemen. By the time the coffee gets to you as a consumer, I had to cut it. Here we are back to the MLM theme again, see? I had to cut it out. So how can you do that? You have to do that by manufacturing. And so I built a coffee plant in my big plant and was able to do it. And now we make the world's best tasting coffee. We also make the weight loss coffee with it too, with those ingredients with it. And then out of that, we are about to bring out the world's best tea. Now teas, necessarily green teas, are good for you, except they taste a lot like grass clippings. Have you noticed that? And I don't like that. So what we've done is we've taken green tea, Sencha, which is the best one, it has the best health properties. And then what do we do with it? We added chaga, gotu-kola, which builds the whole cardiovascular system. Bacopa builds the brain, the whole nervous system. Same thing we're using in coffee. And chaga, a little bit of Ganoderma in it. Then we've intensified the EGCGs, if you know what they are. That's what's in coffee or in green tea that makes them so healthy and burns fat and things like that. Put them all together and it still tastes like grass clippings. So what we did is we nano-sized it. We took it down and we took out all of these other parts that caused the flavor and we put it in nanoparticles. Once we did it in nanoparticles, then we impregnated it, and that's not a sexual term, this is a coffee or a tea term. We impregnated it with peach and mango flavors. And boy, that peach mango flavor in that, does it taste good? And it'll be out here in just a couple of weeks. And so now here is a super health tea for you. That'll burn fat too if you want to burn fat, but give you energy and build your health and everything else. Loaded with superoxide dismutase. Can you imagine these things? Now you thought drinking coffee was simple. It is. Just drink coffee and leave the driving to us because see, we're the Greyhound bus drivers of this. We know how to do it. We know how to get you there, and the things that I'm doing will give you products like you've never ever seen before. And that's the key to it. See, there's the difference. So we got talking about coffee.